what does it really take to create a workplace where the employee is seen, heard, valued, and empowered? So let's talk about, a world where the employee is being appreciated and acknowledged by the employers. And let's talk about this overall business experience. And the best person to talk about this, to guide the women and girls out there who really want to do something in this particular bit, is our today's guest, Miss Sally Acton. Welcome to our another episode of Empower Her Voices. I'm your host, Faiza, and today we are joined by Sally Acton, and she's a trailblazer when it comes to transforming workplaces culture through groundbreaking 4X formula. What is this 4X formula? We're just going to know a lot more about this. And this is like more about conversations, rewards, community, and function. And she has worked with global giants like Toyota, PepsiCo, Woolworths, leading employee experience transformations across 13 African countries as well. And her work focuses on helping organizations become employers of choice by putting people first. So today she's here to share how women can actually influence and thrive in the evolving landscape. So Sally, thank you so much for accepting the invitation, and I'm so glad that you're here. And today there's a lot that we can learn from your side.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time. And yes, I love talking about employee experience, as you know. So it's great to have this opportunity and also to talk to all the women and girls out there that are interested in looking into, the experience economy as a whole and where they can take their place, because it's one of those future trends. It's something that we really need to be focusing on, because experience is going to be one of the things that defines how businesses show up in the future. So it's a great space to work in. I love it.
True, true, true. Very well said, and thank you. So, Sally, before that, we'll proceed towards this amazing and phenomenal 4X formula. But before that, I just wanted to know that when we talk about employee experience, which is your main forte, and we would like to know more about that. So, what is your journey? If you can just walk us through that, what challenges did you overcome along the way? And then, um, what was that turning point where you actually thought, okay, fine, this is a thing that I'm supposed to do, or this is the purpose of my life? So we would just like to know about that transformational experience at your end.
So I wish I could tell you I had an amazing, education, and I really arrived at this place after studying for many years, but that would
Oh,
simply
wow.
not be true. I studied
Okay.
something completely different. I studied to be a chef. I
Oh,
studied to work in a hotel. That was my background. When I left school, I used to work across Africa in different lodges. I ran a scuba diving lodge. I ran a safari lodge in the middle of the bush
wow.
for a long time.
Seriously.
And yeah,
Yeah,
so
it's different.
it is, but I think that's kind of where it started for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed working with the teams and understanding the different dynamics and the geographies of the places that I worked with. And I got to really understand, I guess, that the people that worked in the camps and their experience really shaped how they showed up for our guests. So if everyone at work was having a good time and they loved what they did and they felt that they were being valued and seen and taken care of, the way that our guests would experience their vacations was fundamentally
Mhm.
impacted. So when I
Wow.
no, it was, when you think about it, it makes sense. The employee experience
Sure.
matches the customer experience, and that's what we're always interested in,
Exactly.
right? Is where the
True.
money comes from.
Exactly, exactly. Very rightly said. It's really amazing. Okay, so they're like a truly dynamic shift, a transformational shift from one something very different to something. But you're right that it relates to what we are talking about. At the end of the day, it's about the customers or the clients. So that's great. So Sally, now coming towards to this most exciting bit, which I was also curious to know more about, this 4X formula that you initiated and pioneered, and we would like to know that what are the core components of this formula, how it's working, and then how can women professionals and leaders out there can use these pillars of 4x formula to actually ensure an inclusive and empowered workplace.
Thank you. So the 4X formula was really a way that we started to work with helping people understand how very practically they could implement and look at their employee experience. So we said that it looks at four main components. So we look at conversation, and
Right.
conversation within a business is the business speaking to me as the employee. So how are we keeping people informed? How are we speaking to our people? And how does that sound? So what is the tone? Are we, are we really conversing and meeting them where they are, or are we just issuing command? So the
Mhm.
conversation, because the other side of conversation is listening. We're having a
Yeah.
conversation. You speak, I listen, I speak, you listen, and we have a dialogue. And business doesn't
True.
think about dialogue with their employees. They
Uh,
don't look at
true.
how they can listen and then how they can reply. We see organizations run a survey, but nobody knows what happens to that data or that feedback. So how does the business respond to what their employees are telling them? How do they create that
Mhm.
sense of conversation and transparency? And how do you measure those things? So that's the conversational
Cool.
pillar.
Right. Right. Makes
The ne-
sense. Makes sense.
it does, right? It does make sense, and it's
Hmm.
something that's so easy because any business can think about conversation and can think about how to
Exactly.
implement it. It's not a. It doesn't mean that you have to have special technology or anything for it. It's just
Hmm.
about who talks, who listens. Are we having a dialogue? So I think that's number one. Number two is looking at community. So how do we
Okay.
engage with our customers? How do we engage with each other? How do we engage with our stakeholders or our suppliers or our vendors? Because
Hmm.
everything is about the experience, and the experience economy is built around the idea
Yeah.
that in a value chain, we should all have a similar set of values and want, how we want to show up in the world. So
Hmm.
how do we impact community? How do we do good? How do we take what we're doing in the world, in our organization, and how do we
Hmm.
expand that for impact? So that would be more of your ESG thinking. So how do
Okay.
we actually look and impact the world around us? Because for
Right.
employees, that's really important. I want to
Yeah,
know
it is.
what I'm working towards and what good we're leaving in the world. I want to
True.
sometimes find and fulfill some purpose in my work
Hmm.
environment.
True.
So
True.
we look at that. The next thing is reward. So that's not just looking at how much money I can earn, but what
Okay.
rewards do I get there? How do I get recognized
Hmm.
for the value that I add? What opportunities are available for me? How can I learn? Is there mentoring? Is there coaching? Are there other opportunities for me to work with specialized professionals? How do I get rewarded in this place of work? So
Hmm.
that is that kind of component. And the last is the functional component. And this is one that a lot of people overlook. But in the employee experience, if something is not adding value to how I need to do my job functionally,
Hmm.
it's not
Right.
going to be used and it's not going to add value to my day. So,
Yeah.
how
Okay.
do we as businesses, we sometimes say remove the sludge from the system? When you're sometimes going to
Hmm.
work can feel like you're wading through thick mud to just like, I've got to follow this process and upload this document or check, and it
Yeah.
doesn't actually make sense for the employee. So people don't
True.
comply. So
Hmm.
how do we build that part into the employee experience? And then how do we see that all of those four pillars are in balance? Because if you've got all four pillars in balance, then generally speaking, your employee experience is in a good space. So how do you measure all of those? And actually being intentional about measuring the different pillars and creating a strategy that speaks to how you're going to be doing those things. How are you going to change the function? How are you changing the reward? how are you changing the community or impacting the community, and how are your conversations
Mm.
taking place, and then analyzing that year on year. So that was kind of the framework that we started with, and we've applied that with great success to almost every client that we work in, because there's always one element that's out of balance. You know,
Mm.
people aren't having good conversations, or people, the processes and systems are amazing, but there's no sense of community, or the culture's not working. So we try and
Mm.
go in and help an organization see where they are in the different spaces, and then how they can change things for impact. So that's kind of how the 4EX
Right.
formula works.
It's amazing. I really like the synchronization and alignment of every component starting from the first to the fourth, and it's like truly employee oriented. So the
Yes.
employee. So you have covered about the rewards. Obviously, rewards, as you have already said, it's not about on monetary terms. It's about the intrinsic motivation as well. It's about how much valued you are at the workplace. So the alignment is really perfect, and I totally agree with you that most of the times is that one of the component might not be aligned well enough, and then you
Yes.
need to actually work on that. So that's true. So while Sally, dealing with all these things, you have worked with numerous like organizations and individuals and leaders. I'm sure there are lots of success stories out there while you were implementing this 4x formula and working with this. So is there anything just on top of your head which you can share, in which you actually witnessed and the phenomenal result or the impact of this formula in any leader or individual or the woman working out there? Is there anything right now in your mind? Any one story that you can share?
Sure. So I think as a general comment, the
Okay.
the one thing I love the most about working in this environment is you get to examine the whole system, and you get to look at how all the different parts, play into each other, and how all the different departments work together. And I think what's
Hmm.
so powerful is when you work with the teams and you actually bring everyone together, and we're working towards a common purpose here. You start to see everybody. It's almost like the system reveals.
Hmm.
You help the system reveal itself to itself, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. Um,
Right. Yeah.
and everybody starts to understand the power that they have to impact the employee experience positively. And
Oh wow.
they I love that. Like, that for me is when I really
It
come
sounds
alive, and
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you get to see everybody has such a part to play in creating the employee experience. It's not
Exactly.
IT, it's
It's
not
not about one.
HR.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's about all of
Yeah.
us. And I
All of
think
them. Yeah.
also to understand and to have the conversations and the space to also
Hmm.
bring in from a woman perspective, to say, are we considering if this is equitable and fair in our environment? So when
Hmm.
we're looking at policy, when we're looking at how we're designing a space for function, are we considering the function that needs to be there for women as well? Because we're looking at
Hmm.
function, but are we
Yes.
saying, where is there a room for expressing milk or breastfeeding? How do
Hmm.
people look after their children during the day? What could we create from a community perspective that could reward our employees by having a space that they don't
Hmm.
have to worry about their family? How are we allowing for flexibility in the day? How are we
Wow.
considering other stories and other people that are maybe excluded from our current employee experience? And how do we
Hmm.
bring that lens of equity into every touch point in the employee journey? Because it's those little incremental pieces that we can have,
Yeah.
a shift. Because a lot of the time, it's simply that no one's asking, or no one's suggesting how
Hmm.
to make something different. And I think as women, our role is to, where we have the privilege to be sitting in the room at the table, our role is to speak up and to say, there are women here that would really appreciate this, or have we
Hmm.
considered how we could change this? Because if you don't ask for the things that you want and you don't speak about the other people that need to be considered. Do we have prayer rooms? Are we thinking about a parental leave policy that incorporates all kinds of parents? Or are we just
Hmm.
looking at a binary family that is not really how most families operate? You
Yeah.
know, so I think that's where we really get to have impact, is in those moments, in examining all of the different parts of the employee experience. That's how we get companies to make these
Great.
small changes that really move us forward. It's not about necessarily going in for one big issue. It's the ability to
Hmm.
have impact on multiple small issues that
Multiple.
really change everybody's working experience. And that for me is really where we get to create a lot of value.
Wow, it truly sounds phenomenal in terms of the impact that you're creating with this amazing bit. And I'm sure that the thing that you've just told, so what I can perceive right now, as per my understanding, it's more of like the overall holistic impact, not just for one individual, but for the entire organization, and then how it's affecting the families out there as well. So it's like
Correct.
creating an impact not just within this organization, rather with the families and on the communities as well, because at the end of the day, we people are those who made up the communities and families. So that's really really nice. So Sally, now keeping in view all these bits with this, AI transformation and remote work, and this changing workplace dynamics transformation. So how do you see the role of women shaping the future of these workplace, particularly in terms of leadership? Because these three things, this which I've just mentioned, they have created, impact and affect both. Few of them actually opted for it very positively, few of them resisted, and there are a couple
Mm.
of different perspectives out there. Everyone has their own perspective. So what is your thought on this?
So I think, especially specifically on AI, I think that there is a lot of opportunity to to do the heavy lifting with AI. I mean, really, AI
Hmm.
has been around for a long time. We're just starting to use it more, and I
True.
think that it can help a lot of processing of relatively mundane tasks and things that are repetitive. It is a great tool to be able to use. I do think it needs to be used responsibly, and you need to have your guardrails and your policies in
Hmm.
place.
Yes.
I do think that that's one. But I think for women, where the opportunity comes in, should I say, is that the truly the experience and the way that we use AI and show up as people with empathy, with understanding the unique story, with inviting more voices in to contribute. That Look, and I'm speaking in general terms, that is something that women feel very comfortable and natural in that space. So
Yeah.
from a woman in leadership perspective, being able to use AI to do a lot of the repetition and really
Hmm.
being able to bring in that empathetic leadership, that inviting in of multiple perspectives to create a truly unique experience, I think is going to be
Hmm.
a total game changer, because
True.
it's going to be something that just makes workplaces and businesses different. When you go into a store or you go into a mall or a theme park or a restaurant, the experience of that is going to be what shapes the consumer behavior. People are going to want to go where they're going to have a truly unique experience. And to understand that
Hmm.
unique experience, you need to have a lot of empathy. You need to be able to
Yeah.
understand the lived reality of your customer. What job, from a functional, a social, and emotional state, are they actually trying to achieve, rather than just the transactional nature? So I think
Hmm.
that will be a huge opportunity, that we can get rid of the transactional and really bring in that deep empathy and experience led business. So I think that women naturally excel in that space. But
Hmm.
it's certainly a huge opportunity to be thinking about, what can I add here that a machine can't do? And
True.
that, I think, is a really powerful space to be in.
Wow, what an amazing perspective when it comes to this bit, because we have heard couple of perspective, but the way you have related empathy and the importance of humane touch and bond, having focused on those relationships. And I totally agree with you, because at the end of the day, it's not just about machines, because then behind the machines, still there are humans who are operating it. So it depends at how we are going to use it. And you're right that these things were already there, just that the
Yeah.
usage has been increased, or the awareness has been, increased. You're right about this thing. So thank you so much, Sally. Whatever you have shared till now, these are actually very relatable and relevant trajectories, in fact, for the professional women out there, who can actually learn a lot out of these things, even if they're going to pick one thing out of it and they can start acting on it, and then they can reflect. So there's a lot of room for improvement. So before that, like, we wind it up. So uh, though you have already given couple of advices, but just, at the end of this episode, what is that one piece of advice that you feel that if a woman being a leader in any sector out there is, very keen to create a workplace which is inclusive, which is empowered, not just for herself but for all the colleagues out there, male
Mm,
or female, because we don't want to create any gender disparity. At the end of
mm.
the day, we all have to work together. So what is that one bit through which she can actually, break the barriers in leadership for herself and for the people around her?
Sure. Again, I think it's through the power of the collective. So I think for any woman in leadership, I think the recommendation I would say is invite as many voices in as you can. Get as many
Hmm.
perspectives, learn from as many different stories as possible, because we want to, as you say, we don't want to exclude anybody. So bring in
Yeah.
voices, bring in advice, create that community around you, and understand those different points of view. Because being successful in business, and moving forward as a global force, we need to be thinking about all of these different unique perspectives, because that's where the
Yes.
opportunity lies. If we can
True.
understand what opportunity different people see with our customer base, they're seeing things that we don't see as a single leader. I cannot
True.
have your lived experience as much as I want to. You're going to see something in a market that I don't understand, because we come from different places. We have different upbringings. We see things
True.
differently. You will see
Yeah.
something that I don't. And to be able to capitalize and grow your business, you need to have all of those different things. You need to have many eyes scanning the horizon, what's going to change, so that you can
Hmm.
work and future proof your business by seeing that 10 people will see more, 1,000 people will see more than that, 5,000
Yeah.
will see even more. So use your workforce to help you guide and shape your business so that you can really, be successful, because change is going nowhere. The rate of change is accelerating all the time. We have no idea at this point what will happen week on week. So the
True.
more we are in it together, the more we've got our
Yeah.
people around us to help look for opportunities and gaps and change, the more successful we're going to be. So I think that would be my kind of one thing.
Great, great advice. In fact, this is something that most of the leaders, in fact, out there, or the managers or the profession, they're struggling with this as well. So, thank you so much, Sally, for this wonderful advice and for your time and for all the wisdom and for the treasure trove that you have shared when it comes to excelling in a workplace. And you have actually shared those relatable strategies which can actually uh, redefine the narratives which actually needs to be redefined, because at times we also need to reflect on what we are doing, and if one thing is not working, we can actually, as you have just said, that it's about amplifying as much voices as we can, and then understanding the perspectives, because today's world is also about understanding diversity as well. It's very
Yes.
rich and diverse culture out there. Even in one country, in one city, there's in one city, even there are different sectors or different areas
Yeah.
and units, and people are different, families are different, and they're migrants coming from everywhere. So these things are really like different. So thank you so much, and I'm sure for the listeners out there, there's a lot that you can learn from Sally. And if you're going to go through this episode, trust me, if you're a professional and you can just even pick one bit of forex formula step by step, step by step. And then the two key things that Sally has really emphasized, that the importance of collaboration, as she has said, that it's not about working in isolation, and then understanding the different perspectives and narratives, and then how much you are actually keen and willing and very much determined to accept and to embrace the change. As you said, that the change is not going to go anywhere, it's there. We just need to stay flexible, adaptable, and try to become more, when we say that we need inclusive or conducive environment, we first need to do this for our own self. So stay tuned for more episodes. Till then, take care. And before that we leave, just keep one thing in mind, which she has already shared, because she has transformed numerous organizations and individuals. She has all throughout the episode, the importance of human bond and the empathy is something that she has insisted is the key power through which you can actually become a leader, because leadership at the end of the day is all about inspiring. Thank you so much for your time. See you again.